Otakus Anonymous was recorded in front of no audience whatsoever, but instead recorded in front of an enormous gaming setup that quite frankly causes normal humans to go insane. Any and all references to politics and or religion are not intentional and should be taken with 2 heaping spoonfuls of salt unless otherwise stated by Crypto. Kryptonite 39 is not responsible for the following: a sudden increase in blood pressure, the feeling of wanting to come through the television or monitor and slap Crypto across the face, involuntary shouting, the change of mind over certain topics, bleeding of the eyes, ears, or gums, or a sudden spontaneous combustion of the brain due to learning things that may in fact blow your mind.
Would everybody please this?
Shut up!
Thank you very much. My name's Steven, and I am an otaku. I'm also your party leader. Oh, sorry, that's a little isekai joke. Anyways, would anybody like to go first? Let's get this quest on their way. Sorry, I just can't help it. Anyways, would anybody like to share first?
Sure, I'll go first.
Oh, that's just great. Come on up, sir.
Hello. My name's Crypto, and I'm an otaku.
Hi,
Crypto.
Hey, how you doing?
Relax, Jerry. Jeez. Is it going to be like this every week? Anyways, last week we talked about Beetlejuice and got some stuff out of the way at the beginning about like what this podcast is, its goal is and all that kind of stuff. So today we're just going to jump right into it. And last week I said that we were going to talk about the eternal conflict that is subbed versus dubbed. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, do you watch anime in particular with subtitles on in the native language, or do you watch it dubbed in your native language? I don't know why you'd be listening to this if you don't at least watch some kind of anime. But anyways, so before we begin, we need to at least define our terms, okay? So dubbing or dubbed refers to the process of removing the original Japanese vocal track of any given anime and replacing it with one's native language. Subbing refers to the subtitles that are placed at the bottom of the show so the audience can read along as the action occurs in the background. It sounds like I'm reading this because I am. I found a really interesting article by a man named Adrian Marcano, Marcano. I'm not sure if it's Marciano or Marcano, but it was written in 2016. It's on the website inverse.com. It's called 5 Reasons Anime Subs Are Better Than Dubs. And what I'm going to do to try to illustrate my point is I'm going to take his reasonings and I'm going to write them in kind of in my own words. I'm going to read them to you, and then I'm going to give you my rebuttal to that particular point. Now, he made 5 points as to why subs are better than dubs, and I'm going to argue them. And since I can't have him here with me, I'm going to argue with his actual article. So, but before we begin, actually, I want to start to say that it does not matter, really, if you watch subbed or dubbed. This is an interesting thought experiment, and I would like to share with you why I choose to watch my anime dubbed and not subbed. But there's a caveat to that because I'm hard of hearing, and so I also turn on the subtitles, and the subtitles are the original translation of the Japanese and not the subtitles of the translated then written dubbing. So they don't match, which means that if I'm unclear about something, I can just read what's going on the bottom, or I can, through years and years of watching subtitled TV and movies, I can listen and read at the same time, and so I can get the gist of what's being said by the subtitles and hear what's actually being said through the actual spoken language. Maybe that's I don't know if you consider that cheating or not, but that's how I watch my anime. So I'm just going to put that out there at the beginning. But I think this is a very interesting language question. Not really a problem, but a question. So, Adrian gives 5 reasons why he thinks subbed is better than dubbed. He does also say in his article, which I encourage you to read, it's inverse.com. I'm sure they have a search thing on there. It's 5 ways anime, 5 reasons anime subs are better than dubs. He does go on there saying that there are some shows that he just started watching as a kid, dubbed, like Dragon Ball Z, that he just couldn't see not being dubbed, so he finished them dubbed. But he does use some Dragon Ball Z in his arguments, and we'll get into that when we get into them. So, the first reason he thinks that subbed is better than dubbed is the Japanese language is hard to translate. Now, I wrote kind of like a little tiny argument for each one of these. So in Naruto, In the original Japanese, he says, and excuse me, I'm not Japanese, so any of these pronunciations could be very, very wrong. In fact, they're probably wrong. Naruto says Deribayo. It's translated to believe it. If you've ever watched the anime dub, then you'll understand he says that all the freaking time. To believe it. But in actuality, it's more akin to which affects how you see the character. Believe it being brash and confident almost to the point of arrogance, as opposed to which is a statement that seeks affirmation. When we learn that Naruto is defined by his pain and anger from his clan shunning him, the is much easier to process and gives him more of a human side. Believe it makes him seem like he's in denial about his situation, and quite frankly, makes you pity him more than you should. We can get into the whole thing about how there are some kanji, which is what you call the characters that Japanese written languages uses. There are some kanji that mean entire sentences, which means that even if you tried to translate it, sometimes the subtitlers that are translating it have to dub down this translation anyways, because they can't fit it all in the time frame that you have on screen to get your point across. So they're already cutting and pasting stuff so you're not getting an exact translation, is what I'm trying to say. Even if you're watching subbed, it's more of a translation, but it's not exact because they do cut and trim for time. My answer to that rebuttal my rebuttal to that argument he just made is that the translation of kanji languages can be difficult, like I just said, and it's cut down to keep the show moving. Which means that, yes, I understand that there are some subtleties that are lost in the dubbing process, but we'll get a little later as to why I don't think that's a big deal and how the translators and the writers make up for that, because I believe they do, and I'll give some examples here in a minute. The second reason he thinks that subbed is better than dubbed is that in Japan they use something called honor fixes. Honor fixes are the samas, san, chan, kun, like just at the end of names. I'm going blank right now, but at the end of names, sometimes they add these honor fixes. And in Dragon Ball Z, you hear sama a lot, and that's because it means royalty or deity. But Chan you hear a lot too. Chan, like the girl's antagonist, and then Chan, it means it's like cutesifying her name or an approximation of. But the characters that use this and who they use them to can show you a lot, or can infer a lot about how they feel about the character, how they feel about themselves, and all that kind of stuff. In Japanese, these honor fixers are a way to show respect or disrespect to individuals. The practice may seem weird, but we use the same principle in English with prefixes like Mr., Mrs., Doctor, Esquire, if we really call lawyers Esquire anymore. The most common honor fixes we see in anime are sama, which means deity or royalty. It can be used sarcastically, like, oh, I'm a god, worship me if you're playing a video game. Or for flattery. So say you want your mom to give you something and you call her name with sama, or that's probably a bad example. It's probably not used that way, but in English, that's approximation. San, so like if you ever saw Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi always called him Daniel-san instead of Daniel. San, which means Mr. or Mrs. It can also be used between peers, coworkers, students, and even acquaintances. When in doubt, if you're in Japan and you ever want to not feel like you're disrespecting somebody, use san, basically. Chan, or chan, is mostly reserved for women, particularly within tight friend groups and family. However, it can be used to cutesify practically anything. Kun is the male equivalent of chan, but is rarely used, as it is seen as too cute for grown men and is mostly used for male children. So with all that said, the suffix or honor fixes can tell you a lot about the relationship between the characters. Now, if you want to read more about this stuff here, I actually was at a website called takelessons.com, I'm going to put a link to this in the description so that you can see it if you really want to. It tells you all about these honor fixes, and it also, when we get to the sentence particles at the end, we're going a deep dive into language here today. I got a really good article for that too that I read to do this, and you'll see that some of this is lifted directly off of those and then put into my own words. But it was the best thing I could use to get an approximation of what I need for this. Anyways, so that was his reasoning. Second reason why he thinks that subs are better than dubs. My rebuttal is the English translators do a good job of getting the point of the honor fixes down when needed. Think when, like, say, in Assassination Classroom, they always call Koro Sensei Sensei, and Sensei is supposed to be a sign of respect, and they get that across. When they say big sister or big brother, they're getting across that they're not quite old enough to be elders, but they still respect them as an older human being. Like in SAO, when I think it's Lafette and Asuna fight, and Lafette ends up being a girl with cancer that's full diving all the time. Anyways, when they fight, she keeps calling her big sister at the beginning, and it's a sign of it's a casual sign of respect, and I think they get that point across in those situations. Or when they say mother instead of mom. Again, I said I was watching SAO for the first time, or for the third time, and it's giving me a headache a little bit. But she calls, when she starts talking back to her mother IRL, Asuna. When she starts talking back to her mother IRL, she always calls her mother and not mom, which is a sign in English of respect when you call somebody mother instead of mom, or their name, which, I would be slapped upside the head with a shoe if I called my mom by her real name, and I'm 30 years old. But so think that kind of stuff. They insert the same honor just as applicable to English speakers rather than Japanese speakers. Let's see here. What else did I write? And I feel that because the cultural meaning of honor is so different between the U.S. and Japan, a lot of the subtlety is lost on the American audience, whether read or heard. Culturally, American sense of honor is individualized to oneself or the nation, like patriotism. So, honor in one's nation would be patriotism. And while Japan, it is a much broader term. They honor... It encompasses everything from family, work, ancestry, country. Their sense of honor is so much more developed than the American sense of honor that I feel that even if you're reading it, the subtlety is lost on you. And that's because you don't live in these worlds. You don't live having to use these honor codes every single day. And that's just a cultural difference. And I feel like no matter what you do, you're going to lose it. And so I feel like it's a little bit of a moot point. And that, so that's my take on that reason. The third reason he states that subbed is better than dubbed is the sentence ending particles can make or break the sentence. And let me explain that for a little bit. The ending particles in Japanese are a form of punctuation or a form of inflection at the end of the sentence. For time's sake, I won't go into them all because there is a lot. But the one to illustrate this point is... Oh, wait, hold on. But I'll use one to illustrate this point. Sorry, I wrote all these down. I was trying to make this a little more streamlined than last time. Last time I did a lot of fumbling around. For example, all particles can change meaning depending on inflection, like how we in English determine whether someone is being sarcastic or not. The suffix or the suffix ni in Japanese can either mean you're seeking agreement or seeking confirmation. It is the difference between ending a sentence in you know, which seeks confirmation, or you see what I'm saying, which seeks agreement. A lot of these particles can be used for questions or statements depending on the inflection. This just reinforces the first point that Japanese is hard to translate, which I completely agree with that, even though I'm the one that kind of wrote that. But my rebuttal is... Because the ending particles in Japanese essentially works the same as punctuation marks in English, the voice actor should be able to convey that through their performances. It's quite clear when a character asks a question or makes a statement, or when they want confirmation, or when they want you to agree with them. It all comes down to the talent of your voice actor. I am well aware that there are some voice-overs that are better than others. Try and watch Pokemon. If you're like my age, in your 30s, and you watched Pokemon in grade school, try watching it again. It is a horrible, horrible dub. Same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! I was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Kid more than I was a Pokemon kid. I actually played the Yu-Gi-Oh! I still play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, actually. If I want to make myself seem nerdier. But those dubs are awful. And you've got to just accept it and move on. But my point to that was, when you're watching a horrible movie and there's bad acting, do you turn off the sound of the movie and watch this and listen and read the subtitles? My bad, that was a lot of words. But do you turn off the sound of the movie and read the subtitles? You don't. You accept that it's bad acting, and you move on, and you kind of have to infer everything. And I feel like it's the same thing with here. I mean, there are some core people that are very good at their jobs inside of voice acting. Christopher Sabat does pretty much a dubbing for every anime that comes through Funimation. He's the voice of Vegeta, Piccolo. He does the voice of the Black Bulls' Captain Sami in Black Coat Clover. And there's so many characters that you just know him from his voice that he does. Then there's Sean Schemmel. Sean Schemmel is the guy that does, we'll talk about him a little bit later, he does the voice of Goku. Very good voice actor. As much as they've been embroiled in some controversy at the moment, last year, or was it this year? I can't remember. But there have been some lawsuits going around with voice actors in Funimation. But Vic Mignogna is a very good voice actor. I don't care what you think of him as a person. I don't care if you think he's guilty or not. You can't deny that he's a very good voice actor. Just like the guy who created Rurouni Kenshin is a very creative mind, and I understand that he got caught with child pornography, but I'm very, very, very for separating the art from the artist, and I can enjoy the art without condoning what the artist does. And if you guys just knew half the crap that artists do anyways that just don't get caught, you wouldn't be consuming any kind of art whatsoever, unless it was like, oh, I can't remember his name now. He does a lot of snowy roofs. But he's a Christian painter, Thomas Kincaid, and that's about all you'd be consuming is Bible Man, if you really knew what all these artists do, because artists are tortured souls. We're tortured souls. Our minds are different than everybody else's, and that's what makes our art great. Anyways. I'm getting off the point. Vic Mignogna has a very good voice, and he does very good as Edward Elric, and he does very good as Seraphim in Fairy Tale, or no, he's the guy that leads the group to get to Seraphim. I can't remember, but he's there. Jamie Marcy is a good voice actress. The lady that does Lucy in Fairy Tale is also the lady that does Asuna in the SAO, but I can't remember her name for the life of me at the moment. Anyways, I'm just going to say that there are people who are very good at their job, but there aren't a lot of people that are good at their job. It's not like acting in Hollywood where you can choose from literally a million people and get a pretty good job out of your actor or actress. In voice acting, there's not that many people, and that's why you hear the same voices all the time, and that's why when new people come on, it always sounds funny. Or when you're watching something old from the 90s, when this wasn't really a big thing yet, they're not very good, like the Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Pokemons and the Digimons and all that kind of stuff that are originally from Japan, but we dubbed them with... I don't want to badmouth these people, but they're second tier voice actors. So I feel like your talent does a lot to portray those ending particles, those inflections, those subtleties. And so that's all I got to say about that before I start getting into trouble about giving opinions on certain things that I shouldn't. I'm going to take the last 2 points together, because when I refute them, I refute them as a team. So the last 2 points he has are points 4 and 5. With the last 2 points, so points 2 and 3, which were the honor fixes and the sentence ending particles, when they're taken together, can cause a disconnect with the character's words and their actions. It's on the face that's true. Also, the dubbed version of a show can dumb down or change the meaning of a show. Let me explain a little more here. Taking into account the honor fixes and ending sentence particles, you can see how listening to an approximate translation blurs the line between the character's words and the actions we see them take. Going back to the Dadobayo from Naruto, the yo particle means that he is sure of what he is saying, that he has already got confirmation on it. But as the show progresses, he learns that the confirmation only came from himself and that it was unfounded. This is when he confronts and deals with his past and his anger of it. The character development would only be observable in the original language. Now, the dubbed version of a show can change the intended character traits of characters or change the lesson being taught through the show itself. Adrian, the guy who wrote this, uses one character in particular to demonstrate this point. Goku from Dragon Ball Z. In the original Japanese, he sounds like a kid. He's voiced by a woman, matter of fact. Which makes his absent-mindedness seem more like a flaw, where he constantly shuns working and a normal job to fight and get stronger. He's childlike to the detriment of his family and friends. In the English version, he has a much deeper voice in Sham Schimmel, where his aloofness comes off as a playful father type and much more endearing than the original Japanese character. Now, you can also say that they edit their stuff for kids, which they might have in the late 90s, early 2000s, but they do not anymore. If you've ever watched a show like the Future Diary, nothing was edited out of that show. There are boobs flying everywhere. There are F words flying everywhere. Watch Dead Man Wonderland. There's no nudity in that, but the language in that show is just... I don't think you can get any more cuss words. I think they say every cuss word I know at least once. And so, I mean, they don't do that anymore. Maybe back in the day. I remember when I was in school, we'd always have the rumor going around that if you saw the uncut version of Dragon Ball Z, that you'd see a scene where Chi-Chi was naked, and it was like this legend in the like, you know, 6th grade anime community. It's not true. Now, I've seen the uncut versions of Dragon Ball Z. That is totally not true. You don't get any nudity in Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, so I'd say they don't cut things out anymore, at least for content-wise. So I just wanted to make that clear. So my rebuttal to both those points about the changing of the character and the changing of the show's meaning, and all that kind of stuff. I think it is true that you can lose some subtlety with dubs, but I argue that that's okay. When you play a video game and don't go for a completionist run-through, you're missing the subtlety that the developers intended. Just look at the percentage of people that get the platinum trophies on PlayStations, or the achievement to get all the achievements on Xboxes. It's usually under 10%. Are you going to tell me that the other 90% of players didn't get what the game was about? Or enjoy it, for that matter? I feel like that's an absurd statement. We all enjoy the games we play, unless you played Anthem for like a day. Then you didn't enjoy it, but we all understand. The translators, in my opinion, do incredibly well using other characters' reactions, whether by their overreaction or other underreaction, to portray this subtly. Take the Goku example. I feel that instead of needing to use Goku's voice to portray that he's a kid who neglects his familial responsibilities to go train and fight, they use the dialogue of both Chi-Chi, his wife, and Bulma, his wife's best friend, and Vegeta's wife, to convey this sentiment. The same thing can be said for Edward's arrogance in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, with the dialogue from Alphonse and Winry, and especially Winry's grandmother. I think they call her Granny. It's been a second since I've seen the show. I've watched it through like 2 or 3 times, but it's been a second. I think they call her Granny. We don't need the characters' dialogue to inform us how they feel or don't feel, or their character traits. We can use the social cues that I believe the translators and writers build into the surrounding characters' dialogue to inform us of the character. So that was the 5 points and the 5 rebuttals I have. Now, this ultimately comes down to a question of preference. Do you enjoy watching it subbed? I will tell you this: I'm an odd bird, just like at the beginning. I'm odd. I watch dubbed anime with subtitles just because I'm hard of hearing, and so I get like both worlds at the same time, and I don't feel like there's any difference really between them because I watch them simultaneously, and I can in real time compare the two, and I don't think there's that much of a difference. And to be honest, because I'm a native English speaker, I feel that the Japanese voice talents just are too shrill for me. Nothing on them. I'm sure that they're great actors and voice actors, and I'm sure that like in Japan they get treated like royalty, and I know they do. But as an English speaker, I just feel like, especially with the women in anime, it's just so high pitched that it literally hurts sometimes to watch. Like when I heard Goku for the first time outside of Sean Schimmel's voice, the guy who does the English dub, it blew my mind. And not only blew my mind, but it was just so shrill that I couldn't really just sit and pay attention to the show because I was focused on the voices because they sounded so odd. But that's just because I'm a native English speaker. And I will tell you that when it comes to live action, I prefer watching it subtitled. I'm a big fan of Kung Fu movies, and I never watch Kung Fu movies dubbed because I can't stand when the mouth does not match the words that are coming out. When the mouth does not match the sounds, it drives me crazy. I can tell when your Netflix is like a couple seconds behind because the sound is not matched to the movement of the mouths, and it drives me insane. In anime, it doesn't matter because the mouths just flap. And the ADR process, I can't remember what that stands for, but it's the process they do to dub it. They have to not only translate it, but then they have to try and fit that within the mouth flaps of the character. They don't redraw mouth flaps. I watched a documentary, I can't remember what it was called, but it was talking about that and how it's hard sometimes to do it because as a voice actor, you're watching the character's mouth move and you have to time it right. Another one. Stephen Blum. He did the voice of Spike Spiegel in Cowboy Bebop, which is one of the best. Like that and Full Metal Alchemist is some of the best dubbings that you'll ever listen to in anime ever. But and he does the voice of a couple of characters. He's really known for his deep voice. He has a really deep voice, and he's always, if he's not on Cowboy Bebop, he's playing bad guys other places. But Vic Mignogna was the voice of Brawley in the Legend of Brawley too. If you needed another reference for that particular guy, but I lost my train of thought here. Anyways, I can't do live action dubbed because it bothers me, so I always watch it subbed. And I feel that there's a difference between live action performances and anime performances. Anime performances are boisterous, over the top, loud, and that's what they're supposed to be. They're a version of comic books. They all come from manga pretty much, and so they're their mythology. I mean, Japan's rich in mythology outside of that. I mean, in America, our comic books are our mythology. It's our old gods and new gods. I mean, that's pretty much, they even had runs in Marvel and DC called Old Gods and New Gods. And I mean, like, I would say that the equivalent to Japanese anime in America would be, and you can quote me on this, would be the WB's Animation Studios DC animated universe. Not only is it close in style, like art style, but in storytelling it's very close to anime. It's just a Western version of it. I mean, you can argue that The Last Airbender is more of an anime than the DC animated universe, but that's a one-off because Legend of Korra was not. And so only The Last Airbender. It would be a Western anime. I mean, Ghost in the Shell, a couple Ghost in the Shell shows were created in the US, but they didn't do very well. Anyways, thanks for watching. Next week we're going to get on to thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Next week we're going to get on to Madoka Magica, and we're going to discuss that. And I'm really excited to watch the show with a pen and paper in my hand so that we can we can really get into it and dive deep because it's a really good show. I really like the show. Anyways, we'll see you next week. And thank you guys for stopping by for the Amestris meeting of Otakus Anonymous. Thank you. Hey, you guys, calm down. We have another meeting next week.
We love you so much, Crypto.
You stupid son of a... Would you just calm down?
Okay.